I wanted to make a quick video because I noticed a Facebook post a couple of days ago. Well, it was about 2 weeks ago now, about VC Andrews and the supposed last VC Andrews novel, which will be coming out this fall. The book is called Birdlane Island, and this novel was teased online. I saw as the very last of the V.C. Andrews novels. On Facebook and a couple of other places, I saw some fan theories where they were like, oh my God, when they say the last V.C. Andrews novel, do they really mean the last of the V.C. Andrews novels? For those who don't know, V.C. Andrews was a writer who came to fame in the 1970s with a book called Flowers in the Attic, which became the first in a series of novels that she wrote that were kind of gothic horror family saga stories. Um, and V.C. Andrews died in the 1980s, and her books were then continued by another writer writing as V.C. Andrews. That writer's name is Andrew Niederman, and recently Andrew Niederman confirmed that he was willing to continue with the V.C. Andrews novels, but that the publisher, Simon and Schuster, I believe, is now saying that they are done publishing new V.C. Andrews novels, and that this book, Birdlane Island, will be the last book. I read the description and I was intrigued by it because it sounded very similar to a fragment of a novel that V.C. Andrews was working on at the time of her death called The Obsessed, which was actually included at the back end of Andrew Niederman's biography of V.C. Andrews, um, which is an interesting book in and of itself. I'm going to be quite frank. Andrew Niederman is obviously not a biographer. There's a lot of rhetorical questions and a lot of speculation in the biography that drove me up a wall when I recently reread it in preparation for making this video. And it honestly kind of upset me because I'm now fairly convinced we're never going to get a proper biography of V.C. Andrews. Um, Simply because there's not going to be a market for it anymore. Andrew Niederman took what interest there would have been in a proper biography. So, well done. Um, that's incredibly catty. I should cut that out. So basically, Virginia Andrews' agent uh, picked Andrew Niederman to be the writer who would continue the series. When she died, she was in the middle of her second family saga, which was the Castile family series. She wrote the first two novels, and she was writing the third novel at the time that she died. Um, I'm of the belief that she probably worked on multiple projects at once, which is how it's possible that she had multiple stories and drafts of things that were available, but after a certain point, it becomes clear that there were no longer further notes from V.C. Andrews and that Andrew Niederman was the one who was writing all of these books and coming up with all of the plots. Um, and these novels were, I mean, this was like a rite of passage for a number of years was that you found them. I remember specifically reading My Sweet Audrina when I would go to a Borders that was in the mall. Borders or Walden Books, I don't remember, in the mall, and I read it piecemeal while I was waiting for my mother to finish shopping in other stores because she wouldn't let me buy it and take it home because it was, quote, too scary. So I would just find a corner in the store while she was busy doing other things, and I would read that book in little weekly sections and hope that no one bought the paperback while I was between parts. But these books, particularly the first 8 or 9 books or so that were actually written by V.C. Andrews, have been this legendary modern Gothic family saga horror storytelling rite of passage for generations now. And it's been just absolutely incredible to see those books and to see that that name of V.C. Andrews has been so powerful that there are so many continuations and different sagas that have been written under her name over the years, and they've been so popular that now there are more novels that were written by Niederman as V.C. Andrews than novels actually written by V.C. Andrews. I think the total number of books that have been published under her name is somewhere around 105 and 110, somewhere around there. And of that, the only ones that were actually written by her are Flowers in the Attic, Petals on the Wind, If There Be Thorns, Seeds of Yesterday, My Sweet Audrina, Heaven, Dark Angel, and then Garden of Shadows and Fallen Hearts have pretty much been determined to be that she had started writing it and then died, and then Niederman finished it, and then everything else after that has been pure Andrew Niederman. I've not read most of the more recent ones. My kind of high point of reading V.C. Andrews would have been like the early 2000s to the 2010s. So I haven't read the more recent ones, but the general consensus that I've seen is that the more recent Niederman books, they're not quite the same kind of weirdness and intrigue that drew people to the original V.C. Andrews novels. So there have been some issues there. Um, Also, what I find interesting about VC Andrews is the fact that they tried to keep the fact that Niederman was the ghostwriter a secret for a number of years. It's now an open secret, but they really tried to play the "this is a lost manuscript" of VC Andrews up for quite some time into the early 90s. And so people were not aware necessarily that she had died or that they were getting another writer in on it. That's something that they continued on for a number of years, and then eventually it became something that you couldn't hide anymore. One of the things that I've also seen criticism for as well is the fact that Niederman started writing follow up books to the original V.C. Andrews books. For example, My Sweet Audrina was always viewed as a standalone novel, and he wrote a sequel in 2016, which I remember there was a complete V.C. Andrews webpage back then that was online actually from like the 90s through the early 2020s. And then they finally shut it down. And I remember when he started writing sequels to the original V.C. Andrews novels, that was not well received by quite a few people in that community. So I'm intrigued to see with this new book, the final book, Birdlane Island, which is coming out in October of 2025. I'm curious to see how this is going to play because it does very much sound like that bit of The Obsessed that we got at the end of the Niederman biography. And I think it's interesting that for the quote unquote final V.C. Andrews novel, they're returning to the kind of formula that they had at the start, which was Niederman is finishing up a book that Virginia died before she was able to finish it. So here is the description of Birdlane Island from the publisher's website. Off the coast of Maine, on an island shaped like a seagull in flight, shrouded by mists off the bay, lives a novelist, Jason Lorraine, and his teenage daughter Lisa. They live a simple life, largely cut off from the mainland, and Lisa's weak health poses a frequent concern. After the sudden and untimely death of Lisa's mother, Jason becomes even more reclusive and protective. Lisa is forbidden to see Jamie, the charming fisherman's son, who has quickly become her closest confidant in her grief. The star-crossed lovers steal time with one another, but fate intervenes, and they may never find a happy ending. A brooding artist from out of town, Kyle, arrives and brings more color to Lisa's world. As Lisa fights for love, independence, and agency, will her beloved island become her sanctuary or her prison? So that's the summary, or the little description of what the novel's going to be. The final V.C. Andrews book, Birdlane Island, which will be coming out October 25th, 2025. We will see how this goes. I'm intrigued to see how people respond if this is, in fact, the end of an era. And compare it with that bit that we had at the end of the Niederman biography of The Obsessed and see if this is something that fans feel is an appropriate ending to the series of Virginia Andrews novels. I personally am a little bit optimistic because it really sounds like he's finishing up the story that never quite got told before. I think that if he's following the guidelines of the original V.C. Andrews novels, it will probably be a little bit better, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. If you have been following V.C. Andrews over the many, many years and the many books and series that have been published, drop a comment below about what your favorite V.C. Andrews novels are, whether you have a fondness for a particular book that was written by Niederman, or if you are an originalist, as it were, and you only like the novels that were actually written by Virginia herself. If so, what's your favorite book? Thank you so much for listening. Like and subscribe, and I hope you have a very good evening. Bye bye.